What if I told you that many of the great cities standing today were not built after European conquest, but had already existed as thriving settlements long before? What if I told you that the indigenous people who originally inhabited this land were our ancestors, and that their descendants, many of whom later built black towns and communities, carried forward a legacy of resilience, enterprise, and survival? From the dark-skinned, copper-colored native nations who first called this land home to the black towns that grew into economic powerhouses, the cities we know today are standing on a history far older than what is commonly taught. The reason you don't hear about ancient cities in America is because you're still living in them. The people, the culture, and the legacy, they are still here. Before America, before the colonies, before the first European ship ever landed on these shores, this land was already home to great cities, built and inhabited by dark-skinned indigenous people. They had governments, trade networks, and thriving economies. Today, we walk on their streets without realizing it. The land of the Lenape, New York City, New York. In 1664, the Dutch renamed their settlement of New Amsterdam to New York, but the land it stood on had been the home of the Lenape people for centuries. Known as Lenapehoking, the land was a vast territory inhabited by the Lenape, who had built villages and trade networks across the region long before European settlers arrived. Today, New York City is known as the birthplace of American business. But long before it became a thriving colonial metropolis, it was the land of the Lenape people. The Lenape established communities across what we now call Manhattan, with paths that became the streets of modern-day New York. Broadway, once a Lenape trail. Wall Street, originally a native trading post. The Dutch didn't buy Manhattan. They exploited misunderstandings about land ownership. The Lenape were then pushed off their land, but their presence is still felt beneath the steel and concrete of New York's skyline. The Miami and Potawatomi Trade Center, Chicago, Illinois. In 1837, Chicago officially became a city, but the land had been a thriving trade hub long before the first settlers arrived. Long before the skyscrapers and the rush of modern life, the Miami and Potawatomi people lived on this land, where rivers and lakes served as crucial trade routes, connecting distant regions. The very name Chicago comes from the Miami language, meaning wild onion, a reflection of the land's rich natural resources. Chicago's location was more than just a place on a map. It was a point of convergence, much like the busy streets we see today. The Miami and Potawatomi people were master traders, gathering goods from all across North America, from the Gulf of America to the Rocky Mountains. Long before it became the industrial powerhouse of the Midwest, Chicago was a center for indigenous trade, diplomacy, and culture. Yet, as modern Chicago rises above its ancient landscape, few remember its deep native roots. The forgotten Cahokia civilization. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, founded in 1764 by French explorers, sits on the remnants of one of the largest and most advanced cities of pre-Columbian America, Cahokia. At its peak, Cahokia was a thriving urban center, with a population that rivaled medieval European cities. Its most famous feature, the Cahokia Mounds, are a testament to the incredible engineering skills of the Mississippian people who built them. Though St. Louis is known as the gateway to the West, it rests on a much older gateway, the sacred land of Cahokia. With more than 100 mounds, some larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, Cahokia was a vibrant center for trade, astronomy, and culture, long before European colonization. Its people developed complex city planning and a calendar system that rivaled those of ancient civilizations. Today, much of Cahokia's grandeur is buried beneath St. Louis, its significance forgotten by most of its now inhabitants, but the earth remembers. The land of the Tequesta and Seminoles. Miami, Florida. Miami's modern name, derived from the nearby Miami River, has only existed for a few centuries. However, the region itself had been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years. The Tequesta were the first known group to inhabit the area, followed by the Seminoles, a group that later included the Black Seminoles. Miami is a city known today for its beaches, but its roots lie deep in the land that the Tequesta and later the Seminoles called home. These tribes had thrived in what is now Miami for centuries, living off the land and the waters. But it was the Seminoles who resisted European forces and remained in the region long after others were removed. The city may have a new name, but the spirit of these indigenous and black communities remains, intertwined and resilient in the face of colonialism. The cities we walk through every day are built on histories far older than we realize. These ancient cities, Chicago, New York, St. Louis, and Miami, are not simply the result of European conquest and expansion. They are the remnants of civilizations that lived, thrived, and traded long before the colonial era. Their stories are woven into the very streets we walk on. While America's early history is often linked to the East Coast, the West holds a hidden story rooted in dark-skinned native peoples who thrived long before Europeans arrived. The major cities of the West were built on a foundation intertwined with indigenous histories, including those of their mixed-blood descendants who helped shape them. In the 18th century, explorers like Spanish traveler Juan de Oñate, who encountered Negro Indians in the Southwest, challenged the common image of Native Americans. Later, Zebulon Pike in the early 19th century described these black native tribes in the Rockies as leaders, warriors, and farmers, integral to the survival and development of the western frontier. The Tongva people, Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles, founded in 1781, sits atop land that was originally home to the Tongva people, also known as the Gabrielino. The Tongva were one of the most influential tribes in Southern California, occupying the LA Basin and the Channel Islands. They were skilled farmers, fishermen, and navigators who developed sophisticated trade networks, connecting them with other tribes along the coast. Despite the arrival of Spanish colonizers and the subsequent displacement, the Tongva people's cultural legacy continues to influence the region's agriculture and environmental management. Their complex understanding of the land shaped the future of Los Angeles, even as the city's sprawling neighborhoods now often overlook this vital history. The Hohokam Civilization. Phoenix, Arizona. Before Phoenix was incorporated in 1881, the Hohokam civilization thrived in the arid desert. The Hohokam, who first began settling the region around 300 BC, are known for their vast irrigation systems, including canals that stretched for hundreds of miles. They were masters of desert farming, creating a sustainable agricultural society in what was once a barren landscape. Their innovations allowed crops such as maize, beans, and squash to flourish, laying the groundwork for the city of Phoenix. Though much of the Hohokam's legacy was erased with the growth of the modern city, their contributions to water management and agriculture are still foundational to the region today. The Ohlone people, Oakland, California. Oakland was originally inhabited by the Ohlone people, who lived in the Bay Area for thousands of years. The Ohlone's sophisticated fishing and hunting techniques, along with their agricultural knowledge, allowed them to sustain thriving communities. Their extensive trade networks stretched from the coast to the inland valleys. With the arrival of Spanish settlers in the late 18th century, the Ohlone were forcibly relocated, and many were assimilated into the Spanish mission system. Despite this, their descendants continue to live in the Bay Area today. The modern city of Oakland, established in 1852, grew rapidly during the California Gold Rush, but its roots are deeply intertwined with the Ohlone people's connection to the land. The Ohlone people, Mission San Jose, now called Fremont, California, originally known as Mission San Jose, was founded in 1797 and sits on land once inhabited by the Ohlone people also. Their interaction with the Spanish settlers was marked by the establishment of the Mission San Jose in 1797, which disrupted Ohlone life. Despite the forced assimilation, many Ohlone people remained in the area. The city of Fremont, incorporated in 1956, grew as part of the Bay Area's rapid urbanization. However, the Ohlone's deep connection to the region is still evident in the local place names, culture, and environment. The Ute people, Denver, Colorado. Denver, a city that rose out of the mining boom in the mid-1800s, was built on the land of the Ute people, who inhabited the region for centuries. The Ute were one of the first Native American tribes to adopt the horse, and they used their advanced knowledge of the land and hunting techniques to thrive in the Rocky Mountains. In the early 1800s, European explorers such as Zebulon Pike documented their encounters with the Ute, noting their extensive knowledge of the land and their complex social systems. Despite the establishment of the city in 1858, the Utes' influence on the landscape, especially in water management and trade routes, remains foundational to the area's development. The Nisenan people, Sacramento, California. Sacramento, often called the birthplace of the California Gold Rush, was originally home to the Nisenan people, a subgroup of the Maidu tribe. The Nisenan lived along the American River, where they relied on fishing, hunting, and gathering to sustain their communities. Their knowledge of the local ecosystems allowed them to thrive in the region long before settlers arrived. Sacramento was founded in 1849 during the gold rush, but the Nisenan had lived here for centuries, creating complex social structures and agricultural systems that supported their communities. Today, while the city has evolved into a major urban center, the legacy of the Nisenan's land stewardship is still felt in the region's agriculture and water systems. So, why don't we hear about ancient cities in North America? The truth is, these so-called ancient cities didn't disappear. They evolved, much like ancient European cities. Native-built settlements were expanded and built upon over time. Take Cahokia, which became St. Louis, or the Hohokam settlements that laid the foundation for Phoenix. From the Tongvas Los Angeles, to the Tequestas Miami, to the Potawatomis Chicago, and the Lenapes New York, these cities were built over or expanded from their original indigenous formations. These legacies, deeply rooted in American history, continue to shape the world we live in. If this history has opened your eyes, like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep uncovering the forgotten truths that shape the world we live in today.